are back with episode 12 of season 5. And before we jump in, I want to highlight that we've partnered with our good friends over at Schiller to co-present this season. I've been advising Schiller for the last year as they help consult and market some of the most vibrationally aligned companies in the space. They're releasing their new season of Curated alongside this season of We Do a Little, so be on the lookout for new episodes from them, including some of our favorite people such as Brian Brinkman, Sasha Stiles, Chris F., and more. Links to their podcast are in the description of the episode. We're excited to announce the rest of Season 5 is also powered by Towns. Built on base and running on River, Towns is a decentralized and permissionless group chat app that allows anyone to create and own digital town squares on their own rules. Think Discord, but with crypto rails. Available on web and iOS with full end-to-end encryption, users can join or create feature-rich towns with native on-chain gating, paid memberships, and more, with tons of exciting features and rewards coming soon. We're also doing a little collabing with our friends at Schiller in a joint town for our communities, so make sure to tap in to get access to some Towns exclusive giveaways, rewards, and more. We have some funds we're using to tip people who share art, so be sure to check out the art share channel as well. Head on over to towns.com to get started. The link to join our town is in the show notes below. Also, a periodic reminder that every episode of this podcast is available to mint on pods.media. Each episode costs about $1.50, and holders of our pods NFTs get an airdrop at the end of the season with the art I create for each episode. I put a lot of time and care into the art, and it's a nice way to share it with low expectations. Without further ado, let's dive into this week's episode. In the 12th episode of Season 5, we are joined by the wonderful artist and our good friend Ayla El-Moussa. Ayla is known for her surreal art that combines photography and painting while focusing on the human form, nature, balance, and subconscious. We dive into Ayla's artistic influences, the power of dreams and the subconscious, her love of all things books and movies, the little book of sex questions, and so much more. As always, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. These, Redbeard, and guests may be invested in companies or tokens talked about on this podcast.
Good morning, everybody. Episode whatever number. We're here with an incredible author, an artist, Ayla El-Moussa. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah.
See that?
That's
You did
nice.
it well.
We were just talking about how Ayla doesn't like to fly.
Hate it. I despise it.
We were right, like you hate flying.
I become a whole other person. Like I'm just this tiny little child in a ball. Like it is. I'm sweaty. I'm nervous. I can't form
What are
words.
you scared about? Like, do you feel like the plane's just gonna fall out of the sky?
That turbulence sucks. And then maybe it's just me, but the lack of perceived control that I have. Because like I'm flying in a metal tube. I have no control. If you go down, you die.
Yeah, but that's like the same thing. Like you're
You're driving. I know. So this is the thing: is I know the statistics, and I know driving is far more dangerous. I'll probably get hit on the way to the airport, but it's that perceived control because at least I'm the one in the car. I'm closer to the ground. There's some element of.
Would you feel better if you had a parachute while you
Yes, absolutely. I think about that all the time. I'm like, why don't they have? Like, why wouldn't they put parachutes so that we can just like if there's
How many times has the plane had an accident where you're jumping out and pulling a parachute? I feel like
Yeah, like is there an ejection seat also?
Yeah, like that would be so genius. We should have the technology for that.
I don't hate that idea. I'm not
Are
gonna
you
lie. I
is
feel
that
like yeah.
one of the reasons that you moved out of California and closer up here because
Yes.
you're not driving from
LA too. No, but also because my parents live in London.
yeah.
So that 10-hour flight and then 12 hours or
Is it
11
a
hours
direct
back.
flight?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's at least it's direct.
Which is great because you sleep on the flight, but
Did you fly? Do you fly first class?
no business.
Okay.
So at least I can sleep, but I'm like
So you
in
can
a ball. I'm in a ball.
you're like a tiny little ball.
curled up.
Right.
I tried for the longest time to not take any drugs, and now
Yeah.
I'm just like pharmaceuticals,
What's your drug of choice when you fly?
just some insane hardcore sleep pill.
And you're out the whole.
I'm just like fisting it. I'm just like
and you're out.
out completely.
I used to before I stopped smoking weed, I would love eating edibles on the plane. Eat like 20 or 40 milligrams and just go on the plane.
Really?
That makes me feel uncomfortable. You just saying that right
Really?
now. Yeah,
That
because I
just-
did it once and I hated it.
Oh, dude. So
I took-
mushrooms are horrible on the plane.
Yeah, you
yeah, I
can't
can't
You take a
imagine.
big mushroom dose on the plane,
Yeah.
it's problems are gonna happen.
That's
Yeah.
when I actually freak out about flying. If I don't mind drinking on the plane.
No,
Oh,
dr-
yeah.
not
taking like a
sleeping pill.
ZQL or one of those.
Zequel, like a Xanax or
Pop some
something.
melatonin.
Wow.
An
I mean,
Ambien.
I don't know if Xanax is legal in the United States.
Oh,
of America.
Xanax gets it done.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I take Xanax.
What?
I play tech. I take a Xanax and take like a nice alcohol.
But you don't like the edibles on the plane?
I did it a few times, and one time I had like a bad experience where I
Oh.
felt like I was flying to I don't know if you remember when I went to South Korea
Oh, that's a long flight.
and I took an edible and I was so gone.
That's a long
What was
flight.
what was the issue? Just like the trip was awful, or you felt
It just
stuck?
I mean I knew
or
it already felt long, so I just felt I was stuck.
in time.
Like at one point I actually had a first class seat and
Is this with a potato?
no, that was a different time.
When he hand delivered the potato.
The potato flew first class. I actually flew.
dead.
I flew business.
So
I
it
got
had,
two seats.
it
for
had
it.
its own seat.
Yeah, the
You
potato
brought
had
that
its
to the UK or some shit?
Yeah.
own, yeah to OSF, and I handed it to him, and that
What's the
it was a moment.
furthest you've ever delivered a piece of art?
Oh my God, I get someone to do it for me. What do you mean?
You don't
No
hand-
way.
You don't hand deliver it?
No, maybe like down the street.
Well, this is like the first. I never fly first. I usually fly like
Business, yeah.
because like my points and stuff. But this time, the person flying me out like gave me a bump, and I was like, great. And I was so high, I built
A fort?
fort.
I remember that. I remember you
And
posted
then the lady
that.
started knocking on my thing. She's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm building a fort." And she's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah," because like I was gone. Like I just.
Are you okay? No, I'm building a fucking
I'm building a fort.
On a
Clearly
plane.
I'm
Like,
not
I mean, it was
okay.
just little box. It was like I just put the blanket over top. I like had my own. The door closes.
but yeah, but it's just like this little perceived space. I think that's a big factor of it is
Yeah.
space. So I used to fly obviously economy, and then I was like, no, I need more space. So then you go up, and then you're comfortable for a little while, but then it's the fear creeps in, and
Yeah.
so now I'm just like,
Have you ever seen movies like about flying that freak you out?
oh, all the time. There was
Con Air.
Yeah, I love that.
I
movie.
well the
Such a good
crazy
movie.
thing is like the online now where it just seems like every plane is having issues.
Yeah.
And I can't tell if that's like the human thing where, you see something and then you see it more
You
and
should
more
have
and
a
more.
conversation with K. Dean.
Yeah, he hates flying.
He hates flying,
Yeah.
and every time there's something wrong with the plane somewhere, he sends it to me,
Yeah.
and he's like,
Told you.
"Get ready for your flight to Paris." I'm
Yeah,
like,
he
"Dude."
does that to me too, and I'm like, how is this helpful? Like,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's not helpful.
No.
It is definitely, I feel like, something we've seen over the last like month or two where the media knows that people are going to click and watch this shit.
Yeah.
Totally.
And some of the stuff's been weird. I mean, like the one plane that like hit the helicopter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
that was
one in
strange.
Chicago.
and
that
like
was
we don't
weird.
hear anything about
60
it.
people died or something. Like
Yeah.
that one's crazy.
is.
The ones where like the plane turns upside down when it's
On
landing.
Toronto, and
yeah,
then
like
just
that.
like
But it's probably been like less than 5 or 6 of them. And if you think of how many,
It's still safe to fly.
no, I know, but I just
If
I
you
like
could-
I think it's the idea of the parachutes. Like, let's really try and like campaign for that.
I hear you. So
I'm gonna
like, we'll try
complete-
for parachutes, but
I'm gonna completely 180 this conversation.
Let's go.
because I was gonna completely 180 a different way. I was gonna say if you could be a witch and like click your heels,
Oh, absolutely.
that would be like your ultimate dream.
I was
right?
That
that
would
like
be-
720 away from that.
yeah, that would be just beautiful.
All right,
Transformation.
now you could.
How are you finding your artistic practice changes from going from like I feel like a lot of your art invokes waves or deserts, stuff that you might find way out west.
Totally.
How is that changing now that you're on the complete opposite? I mean, I
Side.
guess there's still waves and a coastline, but like different vibes. Like how are you changing? Are you going through your own like metamorphosis as your
Metamorphosis?
environment changes?
That was like a real 360.
Yeah,
Jared.
yeah.
Great. Got us back
I mean,
on course.
metamorphosis, small spaces, you grow out. So I mean, it's kind of like a plane.
I mean, is it? Listen, Benny, I'm already sweating from the like
saying.
anxiety. No, so what's interesting actually is if you've noticed, I've stepped gently away from this kind of zoomed out idea of artwork and like me being the full image and the sand and the waves. It's really, I would say over the past 2 years, zoomed in more.
Yes.
So now it's more trying to be the essence of what I'm known for, or like, that practice has naturally just evolved. So it's somehow is just naturally happening with the move or kind of how I was going in that direction anyway.
Yeah.
But it's great because I have so much banked archive footage
Yeah.
of waves. And the waves here are just like teeny tiny. I don't know how they are in Long Island, probably
Not as good.
Not as good as
California.
But what about waves? Like, like gives you that, like you're obviously connected in a way to this sort of movement, ocean and in and out, and the way you connect it to the body, which is, I just curious, like where's that all come from?
Where does that come?
Yeah.
There's several things. The personal one is where I grew up. I grew up on an island in the middle of nowhere, and I had to take a ferry boat, and you're basically surrounded by water. My astrological sign is a Cancer, so I'm very much just pulled, if you believe in astrology, which I very much do, pulled to that water sign. But then also the mythology and the symbology of water and how it connects to, the moon, which also is kind of this rhythm of how it affects females every month. So the tides, the moon affects the tides. That affects our emotions and how we act and how we move during the month, I would say. And then it's deep connection to the subconscious mind. I'm fascinated by the subconscious and the unconscious. And usually, in dreams and in depth psychology, when you're going through a transformation, you usually dream of water. There's usually some type of like water element.
Do you think it's connected to the womb?
Absolutely. I mean, you spend 9 months inside a water sac. So it's kind of, it's so integral to us as humans. It's like the substance of life. The planet, I think, is what, like 75%?
It's mostly water.
Mostly water, yeah.
So there's but there's, I think,
aren't we mostly water?
Exactly. There's like this parallel of
It's all
like
happening.
Yeah, it's all.
I mean, this is why I like hot tubs so much.
You've never. I don't
know if I've ever mentioned that to you.
No, I know you like baths and hot tubs
because I feel like I'm returning to the womb.
Can you relax in the tub?
That's where I relax more than anything.
That's your like meditation time.
Video games for me, Deez and I have talked about this, is very relaxing in a lot of ways because it's kind of just like your mind goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
But for me, the tub and the hot tub are places where I could really just zone out a little bit and kind of relax. And I have this thing where like I feel really strongly that if I could climb back into my mother's womb. Okay.
Yeah, no.
It's like going into a hot tub.
Would you be the fetus or would you be you?
I probably would want to go into my wife's, like I wish I could go like back into, I wish I could like every once in a while just go to my wife and be like, yeah, I just need to get into your womb.
I just need to relax.
I just need to relax. I need to
take like a pill, you shrink down.
I shrink tiny down. I hang out. I have a little bed in there. It's a little squishy. It's
you have
hang
a fort.
out. When I'm ready to come out, I just pop out again and, and then I just disappear and I come back. Because I think there's something about the squishiness and the warmth and the water. And for me, I feel really comfortable in a hot tub and a bath.
So I would wonder if you do like kind of one of those past regression memories to see if that's like the first memory you have buried somewhere in your mind.
Of like being
Just
in
being
my mom's womb?
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think we can remember that?
Have you done that?
No, I haven't, but I know people who've done like their past life and other lives and their earliest
let's go
memory.
back to this. What do you mean past life? Am I going to like a shaman or something? A
Yeah,
witch?
yeah, you do.
Where are these people?
Where are these people?
And have you gone? All right, now we're getting into. Have you done this before?
I have very gently, but not done a full journey there yet. But I was somewhere in Egypt. That's kind of, I think, one of my lives.
Were you taking drugs?
No. I was just put into like a gentle trance.
Okay.
So this is really strange. I don't want to like dox her, but I'm related to a very magical woman.
The Queen of Sheba.
Cleopatra?
No, my mom.
Oh, okay.
Well, that too, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
It's funny because my dad and I both have this thing where he thinks he was Cleopatra in a past life.
Oh.
But I think I was Cleopatra in a past life as well.
So you both were.
So
Couldn't
I
you
was
technically both be?
have been.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't that be interesting?
So your mom is magical?
Yeah, she's very magical.
And what makes her magical? Is she...
She's she just has this incredible energy. She's such a healer, but she also just she goes into these other realms and dimensions, and can pull things and do journeys
Is
for
she
you.
a famous healer of some sort, or
No, she's not a famous healer, but she is
well known in the healing world?
not at all. Just like with our friends and family, she doesn't
Okay.
she doesn't promote it. It's not.
So if I met her,
Yeah,
she would be able to tap in and tell me my past.
probably. Yeah, and she'd be able to pull out certain elements. Your spirit guides or
Are you ready for
dreams.
this?
Are you ready?
I would let you go first.
I'll go to the
I'm always a
El-Moussas.
little.
No, she's it's very gentle. Like it's not. It's
I'm
not.
not gonna be scared or anything.
No. It's not like taking toad or something where you're
Right.
or ayahuasca where you're
Okay.
really stuck and you go.
And what happens if I find like I go back and I like turn out I was a gerbil?
Well, how would you feel about that?
If I was just a gerbil, I mean, I guess I would be okay if I was a gerbil.
Dude, I thought you said something else. I heard jur, and I thought you said German. Like, what if I?
Oh,
Oh,
that
it's
would
a
be really
German-
weird.
That would be
That's like a
fascinating.
Nazi. It's like I try to kill like my great grandparents or
Oh
something.
my god!
That would be
That'd be
wild.
really wild. Yeah.
I could
Yeah,
see
that
you
would-
as like someone in ancient Greek times, like wearing a toga,
Totally.
doing like Socratic dialogues with people in the city.
No, I would
love
be
that.
like with Socrates and pretend I know what he's talking about, but just represent him, even though I have no idea what
You'd
he's
be his
talking about.
PR. You'd be
Yeah,
his
I'm
manager.
PR guy.
It's PR.
Like, dude, this guy knows what he's talking about. What is he talking about? Well, I'll let him explain it.
Here, Socrates,
You
please
Socrates, go,
explain.
go, go. You
think a
just go.
lot of like the ancient Greeks and their beards and their long facial hair,
Yeah.
and then you just have Benny there as
Just
well.
like, well, you're actually very like Nordic. Like you feel like a Viking.
I think I have like 1% Nordic in me.
you ever
yeah.
done
And then
any
I'm
of
like
those
99%
genealogy
just-
things?
Oh, like 21 and Me.
Yeah, I feel it's like too invasive. So
Well,
I haven't done
I'm
did it.
nervous. Did you?
Yeah.
So now they have your data.
Yeah, I didn't realize at the time I was kind of high when I did it. But
Benny.
I'll tell you
it.
why.
This is a great idea.
I'll tell you
This
actually
is
why I did
fantastic.
it.
Send it.
So I did it because my father was in Vietnam.
Your father was in Vietnam.
Yeah, and I was convinced. I'm still convinced that I have a half brother or sister in Vietnam.
Oh, so you're trying to find them?
So I figured if I did this, one day I would find out like there's this like half redheaded Vietnamese person.
It hasn't happened yet.
That-
No, I haven't. It
that's-
hasn't happened yet. So I'm hoping. I look every time it sends me an email like, "Oh, you have a new relative." I'm like, "Please be a Vietnamese redhead. Please be a Vietnamese redhead." And I'll fly there and we'll talk and we'll meet and be like, "Oh, I never met my dad." I'm like, "Well, guess what? I knew your dad because he was my dad." But that hasn't happened yet. So that's why I initially did it.
Fascinating.
But it turns out that like right now I have no Vietnamese half brothers or sisters.
so you're waiting for that data to like
But you put it out
populate.
there. You
Yeah,
put it
I
out
want to be
there.
like like those stories. You're like, "Oh, I found my half brother set when I was 75 years old." Like
I've
that's
heard
not-
those stories, but
yeah.
I feel like it's never how you expect it to be.
No.
And you've
That's why I'm pushing it into the universe.
so you want to just
Well, he was in Vietnam. When you're in Vietnam, he wasn't married. You never know. Like things happened.
You gotta just take a DNA test.
Yeah.
Going back to
I
another
love these. This is
another-
great. Let's focus on
another 720. You're mentioning the role of the subconscious in
Yeah.
your creative process. How do you like tap into your own subconscious? Do you meditate? Do you
such a
have
great
like
question.
do you have like certain practices you do to like be
Gen-
more aware?
Definitely gently. It comes from dreams, and I've
Okay.
really been trying to hone in on this idea of lucid dreaming.
Okay.
So to really kind of it's one of these surrealist practices that
Yeah.
they used to do back, like Dali talks about it a lot. It's called like hypnagogia or hypnagogia. So you're put in this like preliminal state where you're not awake but you're not asleep, and you can really tap into all these sources and images, and it always comes out to be water and flesh. Like I'm just so drawn to that, and I don't know why, but it's a really fun investigation. And then it will come like just most of the time it doesn't happen, and then it just sort of that whoosh comes
I
and you
can
go,
lucid dream every night.
can you?
Yeah.
Well, he sleeps for 2 hours.
So I sleep. I don't sleep a lot. So when I do sleep, it's very intense. I go right to REM. So the way I do it is when I'm sleeping, the way someone taught me was I just in my dreams have to find my hands, because once I could find my hands, I realize I'm dreaming,
And then you go down.
and then I could just do whatever I want, and then I can
That's-
lucid dream.
fascinating.
Now, interestingly enough, when I used to get it as a kid, for me at the time, I remember it was like maybe 13 or 14. I have very vivid, intense color, sound dreams. Like it just too much.
You hear sound in your dreams. That's really
Yeah.
interesting. I don't hear sound at
And
all.
I used to feel someone was. I can't sleep with the door open because I used to feel like if I slept with the door open, there would be a figure
That would come
in
in.
my room. And for years, I felt this way. And then basically, I started like researching it over time. And a lot of times people say like, they feel like they've been abducted by aliens or ghosts come. It's actually really just it's really lucid dreaming, and and that sort of you're in like a zone, and you kind of your mind feels there's somebody there, but there's really nothing going on.
Well, it might just be your shadow.
your
self.
subconscious.
Yeah.
Do you keep a dream journal or anything?
Yes.
Really?
I've been trying to. So it's kind of one of those things when you wake up and immediately try and write it. I used to try and do it in a journal.
Yeah.
Cannot do that. So now I just do it on my phone. Like I'll quickly
write or voice note?
No, I'll write, but I should probably voice note because the words get very like I'll be
Do you
reading
remember your dreams?
some of them, yeah. And it's really interesting. Sometimes, like this moment here, I was sitting for a second, I got like this flashback because I feel like I've been here before. And I don't know if it's that
Well, in your past life.
kind of my past life. Like I don't know if there's this moment in Dune when she explains, like, do you dream things that have already happened as they've happened? And I really feel that. And I don't know if it's the mind just making a pattern or if there's something.
I feel the deja vu feeling like once a week or two.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it happen more and more as you get older?
Maybe. I don't. So like for the last 9 months, I haven't smoked weed. For me, I feel like it has happened a little less in that span. When I was high, I felt like it happened more.
A lot.
Like, I mean, yeah, I don't want to say like every day, but like once a week. Maybe now it's like every couple weeks.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel it a lot. And it's normally, weirdly, I feel like when I'm like traveling or sitting down talking to people, it's not like I'm sitting in my office chair looking at a chart and get deja vu.
Right.
It's like,
It's an experience.
yeah, it's like either around people who maybe I've been around before, or I'm like traveling and maybe like I don't have control.
Yeah.
Like while I'm just on this plane, and it's like I don't know if I go down this rabbit hole where like I've seen this stewardess before. Like I've seen the person sitting next to me, but I've never seen them before. But like feels like
that energetic frequency, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I get that a lot, but it's also I think it's just the experiences that we're going through, and your mind is telling you that you've been there before.
That's what I feel like. I always like I try to analyze it, and I'm like, okay, again, am I being that human thing where we love to find patterns in everything, or is there actually this element?
But I think your mind is trying to tell you something. It's like if you feel like when I have deja vu, it's like I'm trying to understand why I feel that way, and I think I have a lot of times subconscious things that are like because I'm so chaotic that my mind's like, yo, you forgot about something.
Okay.
So you need to remember it now.
I think I felt it a little bit the other day, just at the bar with Blondie. I was like, feel like I like have been here before and have
Experienced
been
this.
around. Well, I have been around most of those people, but like,
Yeah. I was gonna say we have those experiences before. Also, like a lot of times, I think that people don't have a great memory. So, like, I know I tend to notice like I'll have conversations with people, and I know I've had these conversations, but they forgot. But I'm like, no, I'll just go with it.
I mean,
No. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember conversations that you've had?
I
Some
remember.
of them.
I could. Yeah.
some of them.
I can remember conversations I had. Probably for like the last 40 something. I can remember conversations for like 40 years.
Wow. Okay.
30 years.
I
at least. I remember
can't say.
conversations I had like when I was with my friends. I had when I was like 10 years old for sure. Like
Well,
I don't
certain
spot-
ones, but not like everyone.
No,
Yeah,
I don't have
like-
that memory.
You
That's
There's
remember.
people that have that memory. They remember literally everything in their lives. Like I think one of my daughters my middle daughter kind of is like that a little bit. I have a very good. My memory's
Like you
based
have
off
good-
experience. I have very good recall memory. I don't like if I study something or read something, I'm not going to remember a fact.
Got it.
But if you give me a moment in time,
You'll remember.
I won't. Especially if it's a bad moment.
Well, that's such a human thing. Like we
Yeah.
remember so much bad. Like if someone gives you, if you get like whatever 50 compliments about something, and then someone gives you one bad review, you will always remember that.
Yeah.
Which is
The
such a,
the dream journal stuff. Going back to it just for a second, I cannot remember a dream very well, like outside of the first 5 or 10 minutes after I wake up.
after you. Oh, interesting.
It's like I wake up
Yeah.
and it's like I just got out of this like hyper real moment.
Yeah.
And I remember it for like 5 minutes. And if I don't tell anybody or
Yeah.
note it down, it quickly fades. And by the time I'm like done making breakfast, it's like, what was that crazy dream about I had? Like, who was I talking to? And
So-
then I've like a couple little, I won't call it journal, but
Like a
it's like
note.
most like a notes.
Yeah.
Oh, I would love to read those one day.
There's only like 12 in there because I don't do it all the time. It's like,
It's a practice. It's like working out. You really have to like.
because a lot of times I have a crazy dream, I wake up early because I'm like a little disoriented.
Do you have recurring dreams?
You read my mind. I was gonna ask
Not
that.
super often, but I think this is for everybody. Like if I have a crazy dream and I wake up like 2 or 3 hours early and then wake up a little disoriented, I go back to bed, I normally end up back in the dream and
Yep.
it keeps continuing.
Yeah.
Can you
that
control it
happens.
though?
No,
Try to find your hands.
Yeah, that's interesting. But that's
Telling you.
I no, I'm normally just at the whim of whatever happens.
I know, but if you're falling asleep again and you're continuing your dream, that usually means you could lucid dream.
Yeah, it's like sometimes it
Because you're
feels like
continuing that sort of like
that
thread.
pathway.
it feels
yeah.
like a reality show.
Yeah. That means you definitely could lucid
Like
dream.
I was like in a house of like a billionaires after playing golf, and I remember like the 70s styles wood paneling and shag carpet because he had never updated it, and we were like fucking talking about stocks. And I'm like, what is this? Like we just golfed with the billionaire and we're talking about stocks, and I woke up and I'm like, wait, in the dream I put his number in my phone. I don't have his number in my phone.
Fascinating.
What the fuck?
I feel like that's also like I feel like you're like I have to remember the number, and then I wake up like fuck, what was that number? And like I want to
Yeah,
go back
yeah,
to
yeah.
There is
sleep.
no number.
There
I
is.
love
It's
the
in your
number.
mind.
Yeah, it's all in your mind.
But no, I don't have like the recurring one that much.
I do you have recurring dreams?
Yeah, I have this one with my family. It was really funny because we went to South Africa on a big family trip this summer, and it was really beautiful. But I've had this recurring dream of my family is on a hill and we're in a Jeep. We're driving in a Jeep, and then up top is just like these wild bandits, and then they like kidnap my family, and I'm separated from them. And I've had this dream probably like 3 times. And then me being a nut who lives in Western civilization, we're going to South Africa. I'm like, oh my God, the dream's gonna come true.
Oh, you were having the dreams before you went.
But this was like years before,
Okay.
like before I even knew we were going to this place. Obviously, nothing happened, but it was really surreal because we were driving and there was a hill on the left bank, and we're in a Jeep, and I'm like, holy moly!
You're like looking for the bandits.
I'm like really stressed out.
How
and
were
then-
the waves in South Africa?
I didn't go. So we went into
Shit.
the like beautiful Sahara and watching all these amazing animals.
I had like one dream a long time ago, and like it's crazy, but like I know it's gonna like no one's gonna believe it, but I had a dream like I remember I woke up, I told my wife like it was that intense. I had a dream, I don't know, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
It was before I had kids, where my mom was wheeling in my dad in a wheelchair, and 3 of my kids ran up to him,
Oh wow!
and he was like shaky and like trying to get to them.
And you had that
And
experience.
I literally had that experience.
Yeah.
Like my dad wasn't doing so well like a month ago. He's doing a little bit better, but it was like literally that experience. And I said to my wife, I'm like, this is.
You have a little magic there. I think you have like some type
You
of.
think I have some magic?
I think you have like a little Merlin-esque
No,
type
it's
of.
the beard.
We should get him a wizard hat.
Yeah.
For the
Yeah.
But my recurring dreams are 2 things. I mean, I have a lot of dreams about the future, like dystopian sort of thing, which usually has something to do with planes falling out of skies.
Oh, excellent.
And
Thanks.
Just so you know.
Just what you
Let's
wanted
just
to hear.
circle back.
Yeah, let's just talk about it. But the thing that I dream about a lot, which is very strange, is I'll have a normal dream, and in the middle of my dreams, and I've had this for years. All of a sudden, like I'll have this I could be in a room talking to you guys or whatever it is. It's just a normal dream.
Yeah.
And I turn around and like right here or right there, like somewhere like off to the side is just a black hole. And I just,
The
and like
void.
I look at
It's
it
the
and nobody
void.
else sees it. And I'm like, yo, does anybody else see this black hole? And everybody's like, no.
Do you want to jump into it?
I don't know, but then I saw that movie like with the donut with Everything is Crazy or something. It was a really good movie.
Oh, everything, everywhere,
and it was
all at
kind of like
once?
that, find a donut, that kind of thing also. And I was saying to my wife, I'm like, dude, that's what I dream about. Like it's really strange, but like if it's not a black hole, it's something. It's like
Some circular thing.
it's like
that
a
you,
circular something, like even circular like a white circle or yellow. I don't know. It's just
Circle right behind you.
yeah, like this.
Yeah.
You guys see this, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not dreaming.
You're not dreaming.
That's a bridge.
But it's funny. Dreams are such a personal thing, but they're also such a collective because when you sleep, usually the world is sleeping
Yeah.
with you. So we're all tapped into some type of like collective.
You think we could like get into each other's dreams?
I don't know. I haven't thought about it like that, but I do think there's like that.
I hope one day I show up in your dreams
Yeah,
and
she's
you're like, yo, Benny,
Benny, let's
get
go.
the fuck out of here.
He's
What are you
on
doing here?
on the plane with you on a
Yeah.
floor.
Oh my god,
Hey, I'm
terrifying.
playing. So I met this young lady who we should introduce you to. She lives actually not too far from you.
Mm-hmm.
She's finishing her sixth PhD.
Yeah, we met.
Oh, how great. And
This was the other night with
dude,
you.
it's-
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you met her.
Yeah.
I've been talking to her. So she's creating an AI
This is
that
really cool.
connects to your brain while you're sleeping, and then makes a movie. Like they can make a visual of your
What?
dreams. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Like-
yeah,
Like you put sensors on your head.
yeah,
Yeah, like those like hats.
yeah.
And so now they, I mean,
Like
they,
I don't know if I could handle that.
yeah, you could.
I don't know.
No, you could. You're not at
Do
all
you want to
curious.
do this, Ayla? Is this-
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I
you
told her I would
Oh,
do
yeah.
it. She's great. And
Test subject number 1 and 2.
Totally.
Yeah, that would be. We would create some insane dreams.
There's this beautiful movie I'm gonna try and it's called The Cell. And
Yeah.
it's really strange. It's with Jennifer Lopez.
It's a fantastic movie.
a-
His first movie, that guy, was even better.
The Fall.
The Fall.
Yeah.
Was one of my most stunning, interesting stories. Highly recommend it.
Yeah. But it's a lot
Crushed
of
it.
this it's a lot of this like subliminal dream world. Like she basically goes into the minds of like serial killers and she basically tracks their dreams and she tries to like either source where their victims are or kind of pull them out of that sort of state through dreams. And it's really she's all hooked up and it's really
Vincent D'Onofrio and right, she's in it. Vincent D'Onofrio is the killer, right?
I don't know the actor's name, but yeah, the albino looking one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. I like that movie.
And it's also there's a lot of water. He puts his victims in these
Yes.
water tanks, and it's just like very, I don't know, a lot of these symbols that we recur through certain things.
If you do you want to like join the FBI and find serial killers?
No,
Is that something that you would be interested in doing?
no. I mean, what?
Where did that come from?
That's so fascinating. No, I would definitely want to be like. Have you seen Thomas Crown?
Yeah.
So I would love to be someone like Thomas Crown.
For
Kind of.
those who haven't seen Thomas Crown.
Okay, so
what-
for those who haven't seen Thomas Crown, it's basically this very affluent man who is an incredible con artist. So he's like
Okay.
a businessman, but then he goes into the Met and
he
steals
steals, right.
paintings. Obviously, he can afford them, but he basically will go as an exercise and steal a painting and then replace it or put it back the next day.
just to prove
Just
that he
to
can
prove
do
it.
it.
Just to prove
Just
that
to feel he could do it.
yeah, and I think there's two things. One, the woman who finds him and catches him is very intriguing to me.
Okay.
And then also him as
So you want to be like an amalgam, like kind of like.
I'd
both.
love to be both. Yeah, I don't know. There's something that's
So do you sometimes walk around in your mind and think like you're that type of person? Like
I'm way too clumsy, but I like to just
sometimes I.
Drop the
like
painting.
totally. I would set the alarm off. I'd like there's
I hear that.
there's moments when I'm like in my ego and I'm feeling myself. I'm like, yeah, I look good. I did it, and then I'll walk down the road and like fall, or
Side-
something
So
to
the
just like
universe just
the universe like, hey, calm down, Ayla. Like just
Side note.
Yeah.
Did you like The Silence of the Lambs?
yes, I love that movie.
Okay, I could see that now.
Yeah.
The most intense scene I've felt in a movie? I have a lot of tense scenes, but one of them that I
Put
remember
the
as a
bag
kid.
in the lotion.
No,
the
that
lotion
was
in the
great.
basket.
That was great. But the scene where
Buffalo Bill.
she
Yeah.
she is going to the door of what
It's at the
she
very end
thinks-
of the movie.
of what she thinks is the girl, and we think that they're going to the door of Buffalo Bill.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they both open the doors and they're at the different spots.
Mm-hmm.
I had this feeling of like, it like blew my mind.
Yeah.
But I could see what I brought it up is because that movie is, and I didn't read the book, but from what I understand the book, it's very psychological that way. Like
Yeah.
kind of like that feeling of like both are sort of like
In tandem
correct.
together. Yeah.
They're kind of connected.
Yeah.
Right, in a way.
Yeah.
And I could see like I could see where you could kind of like both of those characters.
Well, because you have to think like that. In order to like catch somebody, you have to kind of step into their mind and their psyche, which I think is very fascinating. But it's funny actually that you say that. So my mom used to make me read. I wasn't allowed to watch a movie unless I had read the book.
Oh wow.
So, and I was allowed
Good parents.
one movie a week I was allowed, and I had to have read the book. So that was,
What were your favorite books that you read that turned into good movies?
oh my
or
God.
Or bad movies?
Well, no. So Harry Potter, I love the books. We
Yeah,
spoke
so we
about
talked
this.
about
I
this.
love like Harry Potter. It's just like one of those things.
You're a Hermione fan?
Yeah, I do. I love them all. I
Or
love
I feel like you wouldn't want to be Hermione, but like Snape at the same time.
Well, no, Snape is such a heartwarming character, actually. Heartbreaking.
Just a little evil, but nice at the same time.
Kind of, but like in this idea of, in order for the better of the world, you kind of have to do the bad.
You have to do sometimes bad to
Yeah.
Machiavellian type
Kind of.
stuff.
But I'm trying to think of I read Lord of the Rings, the first book, and that was a beautiful movie.
Do you like Lord of the Rings better? You like Harry Potter better than Lord of the Rings?
No, so I like the book of Harry Potter better.
But the movie's better than Lord of the Rings.
But the movies better. Like I wish Peter Jackson had directed the Harry Potter movies.
The Harry Potter movies just
that would've
miss
been
a lot of what happens.
But they're really badly done, and it's also because there's different directors for like almost every single
But
movie.
now they're doing like a 20-part series now on Amazon. So
Really?
Yeah.
Of Harry Potter?
They're,
Yeah.
they're rebooting the whole
Jesus
thing.
Christ. Just read the books.
Exactly. Just read the books; they're beautiful. I'm
I
trying.
remember watching the movie and it was like 3/4 of the book isn't in this. Like the first couple, it's like, well, they didn't do this thing and they didn't do this thing and they didn't do this
They
thing.
miss so much.
It's hard though.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you're trying to condense a couple hundred pages.
Like on HBO, and what's wrong with me? Game of Thrones, like they missed a ton.
Well, but they also did like 7 seasons, and the George R.R. Martin was involved with it, so there was
Until
like,
the
Until
end.
the last two,
Until they
and then
destroyed
yeah.
the best television show ever.
Well-
Those two producers really should be. And then they did this new show, and it was just horrible. So
Oh,
House of Dragons.
the
they
House of
really should
Dragons.
never be allowed to make anything in television again. I cannot believe how you could create something so special and just to flush it down the toilet the way they did was just embarrassment. Like it was lazy. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care. People are like, oh, you know how hard they work on it? Bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like if you were, you know what they should have done? If they weren't ready to finish it, they should have taken some
Waited.
years off.
They should have waited for
Are
him
you
to
Like that's what they
finish.
do in London all the time, by the way. They take like 5 years between like seasons.
Yeah.
Just like take time. Like you
I
don't
mean,
need to-
George has taken fucking 10 years between the last
Yeah.
book and the one that is now yet.
It's just like they rushed it so much, and it was so completely like.
Well, it was kind of one of those things where it's like you're beholden to the business and the shareholders, and
yeah.
this is our best show, so we have to pump out the numbers. Where it's just like
Are
destroying.
you a Dune fan at all?
Yes.
Okay.
I love the movies. I haven't. So Boona told me to read or listen to the audiobooks because that's actually what I do better is listening.
Oh, okay.
And so I've started. They're really good, but I love the movies.
The second one I think was probably my favorite movie in the last like 5 years.
Yeah.
It was. He is just an incredible director.
And I also watched the movies before starting to read the books.
Okay.
And it's interesting when you read the books, it's almost like the Harry Potter thing, but not as much. But you're like, there's information in the book, like the
The
best
Benny Gesserit are like
Well-
non-existent in the movies.
and the best example for me is like the doctor who ends up betraying
Yeah.
Atreides.
Yeah.
In the book, within like the first fucking time he's introduced, they're showing an inner monologue of him knowing he's gonna betray them.
Oh yeah.
And in the movie, it's like kind of not obvious that that's gonna happen. And like you're reading the book and you're like, you know
What?
by like page 20 that this guy's gonna fuck him over, but
Yeah.
he's in his mind about it, and then you get a bunch of the italic stuff.
It's hard to like do that, but I think he did it just.
He did a beautiful
incredible
job.
Like in terms of like the cinematography, like just you're in a surround sound like setup. Your whole fucking house is shaking. Like
the sound is beautiful.
The thumpers.
It's also just like a beautiful sort of movie. I've seen all of them like from the sci-fi channels, which I think they did a pretty good job at.
The older ones.
Yeah,
like,
and then I think even I actually personally like the older movie. Like I enjoyed it as a kid, and I'm a huge science fiction fan. But like this new one that he did, was just like the fight at the end that he does, and I think they're two incredible actors. Those two young guys.
Yeah.
Timothy
Chalamet.
Fade Rothko or
Yeah.
The bald guy, the albino guy.
Yeah. He played also, which I thought was great, in Baz Luhrmann's. He played
Elvis.
The guy looks nothing like the bald character.
No,
like,
not
holy
at all.
shit,
And I thought the Elvis movie was also fantastic. Both of those two guys are just incredible actors. That fight scene at the end, like like a lot of times you watch fight scenes and they're just kind of like, you know what's gonna happen, even though we knew Atreides was gonna win.
He has to. He's
right.
plot
You have
armor.
to, right?
Yeah.
I remember saying to my wife, I'm like, I feel like intense, like he might lose. Like it just was something really like.
It was really.
He just really crushed it, like in a way, like it's such an artistic, like sort of like making you uncomfortable way.
Yeah, like before.
Do you watch movies over again?
Yeah.
Few.
Okay.
We're kind of big like Quentin Tarantino fans, so I feel like we've watched Pulp Fiction like 6-7 times.
Probably the
It's
best.
amazing.
Probably the best script ever.
Yeah, I mean that. I think that's probably, if not my wife's favorite movie, like her top 3. I've watched Inglourious Bastards a few times too. I think that movie's
So Glorious Bastards. Yeah. Do you know the most amazing thing about that movie is? And I heard Quentin Tarantino talk about this. So the first scene of that movie is just incredible, right?
Yeah.
So you should read this. You should watch
the Christopher Waltz scene. Yeah.
When they're under the boards.
Yeah.
So there's an interview, I'll send it to you, where he basically talks about how basically he wrote that scene maybe like 40 years ago. And he had it for his whole life before like Pulp Fiction. This was like his moment, this scene. And he said he just never had a movie to write with it. And then one day he like figured it out. And he goes through this process, which is really fascinating.
Yeah, he's
amazing. And the other thing about that movie that I only thing that I wish was different was I think the Bear Jew.
Yeah.
He was great,
Yeah.
but the person who was supposed to be the Bear Jew and had to pull out the last minute was supposed to be Adam Sandler, and I think it would have made the movie even better.
Because it was Eli Roth, right?
Yeah.
I think
Dude,
Who's
Speaking of
great.
that,
And I think he did a great
yeah.
job. But Adam Sandler at that part, I think, just would have been so crazy.
Uncut Gems is another one.
It was
I've watched a few
fantastic.
times. My wife
loved
won't
it.
watch it because it's like too tense and anxious. Where it's like I love that. I like
You're
bass.
in it, yeah.
But let's fuck bet on this shit.
ending-
Like
That ending when he gets shot,
Yeah.
he just walks in and shoots him. I literally I felt like I want to throw up. Like I was like, what? Like did that just happen? Like it was crazy.
normally it's like the main character has plot armor and they win.
Yeah.
And
No,
like
this
in
was,
this
like,
movie, it's like
so
everyone
well
loses.
done.
Yeah.
Like no one wins.
It was so great. I rewatch a lot of movies. Like, I'll rewatch like I love science fiction, so I'll rewatch a lot of science fiction. I find that I rewatch like Goodfellas a lot.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Casino.
Okay,
But
yeah,
the
those are
early-
great.
Because like it's just I think the dialogue is just so
Casino is
fucking
great.
good.
Yeah.
Both of those movies. And I rewatch like I'm a huge like Clockwork Orange fan. So
Clockwork Orange is an
it's
amazing
my
movie.
favorite.
Dark Knight before Dune 2
Yeah.
was probably like what I would have answered. What's your favorite movie?
Yeah.
And that was one where like, especially between high school and college, where I would watch it like twice a year.
Dark Knight is the one. Well, all 3 of them, or just
Dark Knight. Heath Ledger Joker
Yeah.
is just like
I love watching that movie, but I get sad.
oh, I mean,
Because like it's sad to know that I feel sad that we didn't get to see him establish that character more because it was so genius, and it's like almost like, I mean, maybe it was meant to be because like
That's
it was
what-
that
yeah,
moment.
it kind
but
of-
it was. I mean, that movie, the movie was great. Heath Ledger was.
Well, he makes the movie. Without him,
It was so
movie's
brilliant
like, okay.
done. I mean, Joker is the best, in my opinion.
The best villain.
It's not just the best villain. He is the most interesting character in a movie setting. I mean, like, if you think about back, like, all these actors that played him and how well they did.
Jack
Nicholson,
Nicholson.
fucking insane.
Yeah.
But not
Heath
as good as
Ledger.
Heath Ledger.
No,
Heath Ledger's
he
amazing.
became.
And then even the first Joker movie, like, second one, I liked a lot. I liked the first one better, and people didn't like it. But
the Joaquin Phoenix.
the first one was also
The first one was
fantastic.
good.
But every subsequent Joker character that isn't Heath Ledger, you're like, fuck, I wish this was Heath Ledger.
I
I
know.
like the Joaquin Phoenix one, but it's like, you're not Heath Ledger. Like, you don't
can't.
have that chaotic demon, like,
He just had that like
but
darkness.
also playful,
Yeah.
but also like
I think
the
that
delivery.
Yes, and I think he embodies the whole thing. But the thing with me for the Joker is fascinating because, so Batman really is like the only superhero that really doesn't have superpowers.
Nice, has money.
Think about this.
Bruce
But
Wayne.
he is like
Yeah,
the
that's a good
most
point.
powerful superhero sometimes there is. So like in the comic books, what he does is he finds a way. Why he's so powerful is because he finds a way to find everybody's weakness. So he knows Superman's weakness, Flash's weakness, so he could destroy them
just by
by with their
Knowledge.
weaknesses. But he has zero superpowers. Like he is a human being. And Joker is a supervillain that is completely human, right?
yeah.
So the two of them, while they're so completely different, are really actually the same. And they talk about that in the movies, like how like they can't live without each other because it's the yin and yang. Because if you look at what Joker's trying to do, right, as a character, is literally what Batman is trying to do. Batman is trying to bring peace to his city. Joker literally wants to bring peace through chaos. His idea is you can't fix this unless you totally destroy it, which in theory, he's not wrong about, right?
It's kind of
Because
like Thanos, but Thanos was
100%.
wrong. Basically, Thanos goes back and goes like, I should have destroyed everybody
I just destroyed everybody.
instead of half.
Half was not the right answer.
Yeah.
Because if you look at like societies, the answer is like, how do you fix society? Like, well, you could fix society by fixing some people, but will that actually weed out the actual issue? So the in essence, Joker is a super villain. People want to call him a bad guy, which he is, but he literally is.
There's always a truth
There's
there.
a world where he's kind of right,
Yeah.
and Batman is wrong, and he has to win. It's the same thing. Like I watch the Alien series a lot, and like Joe P's got me deep in this rabbit hole about like I don't know if you've ever watched it, but the last movie was fantastic.
Romulus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was great, and like basically how like these aliens were created by these species that created us, and then we got out of
Prometheus.
control, and then they created the aliens, which is a perfect specimen, which just eats, sleeps, and kills and mates, right?
Yeah.
To destroy us, which then we took, figured out a way to harvest it to then destroy the gods that created us. I mean, think about that concept. It's fucking insane, right? And like AI is kind of like what we're doing that way. Like God has created us, if you know God exists or not. We then create this insane sort of like artificial intelligence that is now its own being, that is basically makes us God, that could then destroy the world basically if we don't,
If we so choose,
if
or
we
how
so choose to not control it.
What are your most rewatched?
I watch so many, so I basically will watch them back to back, which is really strange. So if
Okay.
I watch a movie, depending on the mood I'm in, I've watched so many. I'll put them back to back, and then when I'm working in the studio, I just have them playing, and I know what's happening. I think Phantom Thread is probably my most watched.
Phantom Thread?
Yeah,
never
Daniel
seen it.
Day-Lewis. It's this beautiful.
Oh, that was like his last movie he did, right? I didn't see it yet.
It's such a beautiful movie, and you watch it. Cinematography is amazing. The outfits are amazing. The set is perfect, but the story is just this beautiful. You think that, you know, this woman is kind of being overshadowed or, you know, manipulated by this, you know, very narcissistic, very perfection driven designer. But at the end of the day, she's the one who,
Well, don't ruin it.
yeah.
Okay. Now I want to see it.
I like
Have you
the
seen
Noir.
it? It's
I
such a,
haven't, it's why he's the only movie of his I haven't seen. It was the last movie he did.
so beautiful. I will,
I think
whenever.
he's coming back to act now, though.
So when you're creating, you listen to movies in the background
Yeah.
more than music. Is that
Yeah. So when it will depend. So when I'm shooting,
Uh-huh.
I will be listening to music.
Okay.
When I'm like in the studio just editing or
Yeah.
painting or drawing or whatever it is, it's a movie.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You use yourself.
You might be the
all
first
the
person I
time.
ever talked to who does that.
Really?
I don't know anyone who creates what movies on in the background.
But I'm very strange because
do?
I watch. You do too.
Really?
But
Well, he's a big movie.
He has a
fan,
movie.
too.
Well, yeah.
Leisha's like a movie nut.
Yeah.
No, but I love movies and they're so beautiful and they put you in this like certain mood. So like if I
Yeah.
get on an airplane, I'll have a list of movies
Yeah.
because they give me a certain feeling.
100%.
Snakes on a plane.
Do you know what's funny? It's actually funny to say that. I love horror movies. You know, the only time I watch them is on planes. I
Fascinating.
download them and I only because I'm like, well, no one's gonna kill me on a plane, so like I
Well-
can just watch it.
Well,
Texas Chainsaw
Yeah.
Massacre. There's no
Well,
chainsaws
Texas
on the
Chainsaw
plane.
Massacre, I love. I can watch that all the time.
probably great.
But I like these new scary movies, like the really like.
Oh,
Like The
jump
Conjuring
scare.
yeah,
or-
like, I always watch them on planes because I'm like, well, I'm all
I'm
alone.
safe up
I'm
here.
safe up here. You can't get me.
in my cave.
But you use yourself a lot, almost all the time as the person in the
Images.
pictures and the images that you use. There was one time though that there was this great photo of you that I saw. I was like, hey, this is like just like a really powerful photo. And now usually not everybody looks at your Twitter and reads how you do things. I know you set up your camera and you
Yep.
take your own pictures, but this one your dad took of you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And-
Oh, the
and-
portrait
yeah.
with the earring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little about that? Because I just like remember saying like, this is one of your best portraits. You're like, well, actually my dad took it.
Yeah.
And it meant a lot to you.
Yeah. No, so I really don't like when people take my picture.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. It's just a strange, visceral reaction. And my dad, for the longest time, he's a photographer. He's the one who kind of really got all of us into photography.
Okay.
But recently, I've started to let him take my portrait, which is really cool. And he took this I'm wearing a $10 Hanes sweater, and I look like a Van Gogh painting.
Yeah.
And we were just setting up the lighting, and he somehow did it in this like insane way. There was no editing. My dad hates to edit his photos, and the way he just lit it, like my jaw is like cut because of the way he put the light. The makeup is perfect. It was just a really great.
So when you take a picture of yourself, is it, and you don't like when other people do it, you don't mind doing it to yourself?
No, it's different.
Is that
yeah.
like sort of like a Dorian Gray kind of thing?
Kind of. Oh, interesting reference. It's very much control.
Right?
Like just being, because it's funny, you tweeted this and it was something that I remember sitting with for a long time because 21, 22, I was really kind of like pronouncing or just like almost like yelling to the rooftops like, oh, look, I'm the model in the images. Like these are self-portraits. I'm a self-portrait artist. And then I began to think about it and I'm like, this is not the vibe. This is not how it actually feels. And then you tweeted, I think middle of 24, and you said, how do you know when an artwork is finished? And I really sat with that. And I'm like, actually, when I don't see myself. So sure, I kind of use myself as the canvas or sort of the base body that will be worked with in the images, but it's not really me. It's like it's almost like an alter ego that comes out.
But you're still the canvas.
I'm still the canvas.
So is it like an inner thing that's coming out from you in a way that you're expressing?
It's a total, like when I'm alone in the studio, it's a different person that comes out. And then, like we'll be out at dinner, or I think one time Dave Krugman was like, hey, can I take your portrait? I'm like, no, like absolutely not, because it's kind of like almost like Medusa. Like I see my reflection and it will just.
So do you not like this is what I'm curious about. Like I don't like looking in a mirror.
Fascinating. Okay.
I hate it. I hate when people take my picture in general. As much as like people are like, well, you post all the time. Like, yeah, but I actually feel
You don't like
uncomfortable about it.
Okay.
Unless I'm doing something. I think you notice, but like whatever. It's like if you notice when I take pictures, I'm usually doing
Something.
ridiculous. I don't like
Yeah.
But I do notice when I look in a mirror, I have a hard time sometimes just staring at myself. I don't know if you guys have that. But like I notice that when you take your picture and you're doing your self-portraits, there has to be some kind of connection to like the depth of who you are and what you're trying to like
Yeah. It's
get
that.
out.
it's that internal self somehow. I don't know. It's could sound vain, but I think there's just again that alter ego, that past kind of life. If we
Goes
gonna
back to like your subconscious.
totally like
letting
if
that kinda take
if I'm that sort of royal Cleopatra, that I feel like that energy will just embody, and it kind of maybe it's just what allows me to do like step in front of the camera and actually have the confidence. It's a strange.
Your dad was a photographer, introduced you. I'm assuming, is he the one who introduced you like to the art world early on, or was your mom also very?
It's also funny. I've been thinking about this. I tweeted like last night. I've really been trying to go into like the genealogy and sort of like the history of my family tree.
Mm-hmm.
So both of my parents are extremely creative.
Okay.
My brother is creative. My sister is creative. My grandma was
Grew
creative.
up around a lot of creative energy.
Just
What'd your grandma do?
my grandma was just an incredible. She painted, and she also was an incredible set designer. Like She
Really?
did like beautiful sets.
Gotcha.
That's so cool.
It was really interesting. My mom's uncle was like a poet and a musician. And so there's just this like lineage. And I've been thinking about like if you can inherit trauma, because there's like this study where you can inherit, I think, past trauma.
I'm Jewish. Trust me, again.
Yeah. But could you inherit creativity?
Uh-huh.
I mean, I was going
I
back.
definitely think you can.
I think there's
I
something.
think it's not even like you're inheriting it. Like I could tell you, like it's what you do with your kids at a young age.
Yeah. Nurture.
Like what you're nurturing, what you're introducing to them. What like like I say this all the time. Like the most exciting thing for me about artists, I had like Summer come over, Wagner. She came to our house, and my kids were hanging out with her, and she was showing my middle daughter how to use a camera. And like my middle daughter won't get it, but one day she's gonna turn around like, oh, I remember when that amazing photographer. And one day, Summer's gonna make incredible films because she's brilliant,
Yeah.
and we have to get her on. And
Hasn't she been on?
We had, well, I had
You
her.
had
her,
her.
not together. We
Yeah.
never-
And she did that beautiful like presentation of her before and after, kind of like how she edits.
Yeah, well, so we've had her on a couple things. That was when we were running Escher,
Right.
and we were doing art drops, and during the process of marketing and me being selfish, I was like, let's
Have
just
you?
like screen share for 30 minutes to an hour and show
Yeah.
me what the hell you're doing. Because
Yeah.
like when we have you on this, you don't have a way to share like what are you like
My
in
process.
your studio? What the fuck does your screen look like what
Yeah, what are you doing?
variables are you introducing to change things? And
Yeah.
Summer was like very very open about like, here's my raw photos, here's the editing,
Yeah.
here are some of the lighting things I do, and she would like basically like flip the switches and like be like,
Show you.
yep. And then you could see like, oh shit, like you took this photo in the dead of fucking night, and then you jacked all the lighting way differently, and now it looks like this like ethereal, almost daytime thing.
Yeah.
But you took it in a cornfield at
Like 12,
11
yeah.
p.m. or midnight, and yeah. So we had her on that, but then we also did a long form, kind of like this. The shows with Benny are always a little different than the shows with Andy. Benny, I think we were a little more chaotic and a little
Naturally.
more all around.
Yeah.
Whereas some of the stuff with Andy, I think, I don't want to say it's more chronological,
But it's a bit more like, what's your.
Andy's not going to talk
so
about.
I try to bring some of that to this
Yeah,
with some of the questions I'm asking.
Which is great.
And then,
Andy's not going to talk about sex robots, which we'll get to.
no,
What-
we'll get there. But I like to
Sorry.
know like what makes you you, like, and some of that comes from the subconscious. Like, how were you brought up? What were
Totally.
you doing early on?
Yeah.
How did, in your case, your artistic practice? Were you always taking pictures of yourself, or were you taking pictures of other things and realize like, well, I have the most control over myself, and I can better control the variables if it's just me.
Totally.
And like, how did that happen? Like, were you a kid who loved taking pictures of yourself too? Or was it more of like a found, practice of trial and error and realizing like,
Oh, okay.
I like being completely in control of this whole thing, whether it's I'm the subject, but also the editor, the composer, whatnot.
Totally. I mean, those are great questions. Definitely nurture nature. My parents, I really feel like I got lucked out with my parents.
Yeah.
They really grew up on a farm. My brother and May are going to eye roll because I will always say this, but I think that was a huge, huge influence, just being surrounded by nature and not
Your
having...
brother, who's an incredible artist in our space.
Yeah,
Also.
he's lovely. And there's a fun caveat story, and then I'll answer those questions. But just to get a sense of how I was as a kid, I had so much energy. I was like really rambunctious, and I loved to be sort of the center of attention. I loved drama and like doing the plays and being like the star of the show. But my mom, whenever I would come home, I just had so much, I'd get into a lot of trouble. And so like my summers when I'd be grounded, I'd be like chopping thistle and like pulling lavender. And
Oh my God, that's so funny.
However, so we had chickens. We had like around 12 or 14 chickens. And every time I'd come home from school around 4:30, she would make me catch the chickens and put them to sleep. Like put them in their cage and like kind of close it. And have you ever tried to catch a chicken?
So you had free roaming chickens
We had
with
free
like
roam-
a
yeah.
small coop.
No, they were
slept
just
in?
free roaming on the farm. And
Okay.
I'd have to like basically, they kind of stay in like a group together, but but trying to catch a chicken is like the Rocky movie, right?
I
Where
was
you're-
about to say Rocky too.
Yeah.
Grease Lightning.
Yeah. Like it is impossible. Anyway, so I would spend probably like an hour chasing these chickens and I'd be like pooped by the end of it. Anyway, so I came home one day. I think I was at school. I was late. And I came home and I was going to go put the chickens to bed. And I realized they were all asleep already. They'd put themselves to sleep.
You didn't have to catch them.
No. And
You're like Babe.
And I realized that
The
at
pig movie.
sunset, chickens will naturally migrate to their coop.
Ah.
So my mom was basically making me expend all my energy by...
Oh, but she already knew that.
She already
Yeah.
knew that, of
So
course.
she's just playing this game to make you realize that, and you're like, yeah, go through the process until you learn that. I love that. Ugh.
So funny.
So how long were you doing this for? Like years, months?
I was probably
weeks?
like a year.
Okay.
And then I clocked on to the fact that they put themselves to bed, and then I was just like,
Did she look at you and just be like, you just understood each other?
No, I was just like, are you kidding? No, because I was mom, I was such a, but
You're making me want to like get a farm now.
yeah, I love that.
We had chickens too. My dad built a
really,
coop.
I would like to move to a even more rural area.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to do that.
Do it.
Anyways, answer more of your questions because this was really good questions.
No, those were really good questions. So my dad, I'd always, again, had like a creative impulse. I'm very right-brained. I cannot do math. My spelling is supremely creative.
That's why you belong on this pod.
Yeah.
Not a lot of math going
Not a
on
lot of
here.
math going on here.
Thank
we're not math
God.
guys.
Very right brain here, all three
So
of us.
right.
Not a lot of math.
So he gave me a camera. I mean, I was always painting. I went to a Waldorf school, very hands-on, like knitting and woodwork and painting and learning math.
She went to school with a good friend of mine also.
Yeah. Well, that was high school.
Oh, sorry, it's high school. Okay.
Different. But doing all of that, and I could, like, the paintings were never translating. And then my dad, who is a hobby photographer, gave me a camera, and I was able to then take these fantasies in my mind and translate them.
Oh, I like that. Did he give you direction to do that, or you just did that on your own?
No, I did it on my own. He sort of showed me how to use a camera and gave me sort of the basics, and then I would go and I'd use all my friends as models and kind of, go again somewhere in this vast nature, and then have this usually nude female in the image.
But at that point, you were taking pictures of other people, not yourself.
Yeah. No, I was taking pictures of other people. I actually have the very first, I should post it. I have the very first picture I took of myself. It was on like a Nikon, and I had it set up, and it was like blurry and awful, but it was fascinating. But I didn't take pictures of myself. For some reason, that wasn't I wasn't inspired by that. It was more like
Was it a self-conscious thing, or you just didn't realize?
It didn't even cross my mind, because I wanted to be like, Helmut Newton or, Guy Bourdin or, these great photographers who take pictures of other people. Mm-hmm. And then when I started to post work and think about selling it, is when I got, oh, hang on a second, I have to get these people to sign a release form. Shit. Is this work mine? Because in 10 years, if it sells for $1 million, are they going to come now and be like, hey, this is my image? It wouldn't be the image without me in it. So then I really started to think about that. And then I flipped.
When did you first start selling your art?
Ooh, that's a good question. Like 20, officially in this aesthetic, obviously is 21.
Yeah.
And then I was doing like gentle print releases, maybe like 19, 18.
Okay.
And then Yeah, but it wasn't really official until.
And the print releases were like of yourself too.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
of myself. Then, well, there was a couple of like other models that I was shooting because I was making these campaigns. I was like, oh, let's do prints because people really seem to gravitate towards this image.
Yeah.
But then it just felt really strange. Yeah.
I've always like felt that way, especially a lot of the art that we've bought that is like the photographer's taking pictures of another subject. It's like always makes me way more comfortable when I know the artist, the photographer's relationship with the subject.
Yeah.
And, like,
Totally.
Yeah.
I always think of like Meg, who's like one of the better examples.
She's
of
doing
like,
a great job at that.
she has the deals with the models where like they get a portion of the sale, and she's like super friendly with them. It's like some of
Julie
these,
Pacino does the same thing.
some of the
Yeah, Julie's
photographers,
great.
they like pay the model a flat rate and they sign.
And that's that.
And it's like, well, that kind of feels off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
I think on that topic, just because if you don't mind, 'cause I like to talk about that.
yeah, no, it's
There's a little thread there of like how it's, you named 2 female photographers who understand that. Versus it seems like a male dominant sort of photography has been dominated by men for a long time, who built that system in which that didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and I hope, and like, look, Deez and I very much probably with Guy, I would say the 3 of us have bought a tremendous amount of, especially photography from female photographers. And I think we've talked about this when we started, even when we collected together, but as friends, how like there was something important. Like I'm very into this narrative. Like, look, I don't feel like just because you're a woman, we should buy your art or your art is good. But if you're an incredible artist and you happen to be a woman, I think it's really important to push that narrative because we need more of that, but to have at least their voices to be able to express that, like Meg and you and Julie saying like, hey, we are great artists, not just because we're women, but while we're here, this is a message that we need to get across.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I grapple with that a lot because I used to think that, yes, being like a female voice is really important, and it is. But I think in order to like level the playing field, we can't or we shouldn't distinguish between the two. Like Georgia O'Keeffe said this amazing quote, which I will always refer back to. And she said, I don't want to be a great woman artist. I just want to be a great artist.
And
absolutely
it's incredible. It's one of her best. Like
it's such a, and that's such a
because you're
point.
putting yourself in a box. You're basically saying like,
Exactly this.
I'm a
X,
woman
Y, Z,
artist.
yeah.
Like, look at me. And it's like, no, it's like I make really good art.
I'm a good artist.
Exactly that. But that's so to the point where it's like, it's not even about kind of who I am. It's once that art is out there, if it's great, it doesn't matter.
Right. And then when you are a great artist, then the messaging that you can give across is like, hey, we need to be better with models because you connect to that more.
Yeah.
Then I think that's like how we build sort of like a little bit more problem.
Yeah, I know for me, a lot of it just comes from like collecting with Jess. It's like
100%.
having a partner that you trust unequivocally be honest with you and tell you like,
This is
just like, you like this because of the male gaze. In a way, it's like, it's nice to hear that sometimes because sometimes are just like very primal creatures. But then,
which is fine. The thing is it's like we're such visual creatures in general. Like this is why we gravitate towards art. And I don't think, like, again, if you were into, I always make this reference, like if you were into candlesticks and that's what kind of was your thing, you would probably gravitate towards that. It's kind of like the same thing. I'll go into the Met and I'm drawn to these like beautiful fleshy bodies and like Rubens and Titian, and there's something about these like beautiful mythic models that I can't control what I'm.
yeah.
I mean, you can curate what you see and try and like expand your vision, but yeah, it's interesting to have like.
No, I think like we talked about this also, like same thing with the Mira. Sometimes she'll be like, yeah, you want that. You just
the
want
person
that.
behind the art, not the actual.
But then I'll show her things and she'll be like, that's really nice. I think nudity. We were talking to Una, who takes it differently than other artists, right? Which I think is fine.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's times when you look at, learning about nudity in art, which has been around again forever.
Yeah.
Especially in photography. There's like when it has purpose and meaning, and then it just sometimes feels like it's it feels like a little bit forced, or like, hey, like you're gonna get the male gaze sort of thing, right? Like that. So with you, I think that you embrace that, right? One of my favorite projects you did was you're new to abstracts, right? Because like I think it was very under the radar.
Yeah, I did
It was
too.
like very much about your figure, nudity, yourself, your kind of like your depth of who you are. But it wasn't like, it's like something like, hey, I'm putting up my house, no one's gonna even realize. But there was like a lot of thought that went into that project.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's probably one of my most favorite projects, and I think it will always be Ayla pre nude abstracts and Ayla post nude abstracts. One, because it was so much just the way I advanced my practice and the way I started using like digital paints and like really creating this. I wasn't just inspired by art blocks or Robbie Barat's Lost Robbies, but I really was like, oh, Clifford Stills was a really huge inspiration. The new Descending Staircase by Duchamp was also something that I really wanted to like give in. And then again, that idea of gently moving the viewer away from this idea that it is Ayla and the idea that you have to see body. And if you notice, like after nude abstracts, everything has actually zoomed in into a micro type of view versus macro, and it's no longer just a photograph.
The piece we co-collected in Megazord, where it's, if you're looking at it small, you can't even immediately tell it's your body. It looks like a hill, and then you like zoom in, you're like, oh.
The one with the tree.
With the bird.
The bird. A
Yes,
lone
the
bird.
bird.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's another one where it's like, you have to actually really look at it. It's not, it doesn't just hit you in the face that like, oh, there's, like you're like, oh, this is
There's
this is like a
yeah.
landscape, and they're like, oh. And then I feel like some of your newer stuff is also like that, where it's so zoomed in that like it's not just hitting you from the body first.
Yeah.
It's like the composition of it, and then you're breaking apart the composition. You're like, oh, these pieces are
parts of.
Yes.
Like the last piece you did, that bat suit bought, like when we were talking about it, and I was like, the first top half, second half, I was like the top half.
No, so that's a new piece that hasn't been collected.
Oh.
That was after Bantz's piece. But yes.
Escape Alpha.
Continue.
But I know like Bats is also a big supporter.
He collected the one that's along that same vein.
Okay.
But the wave was on the side.
Right.
This new one is.
And I kind of felt like what I was saying to you is like the wave without even seeing your body feels like you, right? Like
fascinating. Yeah, that like
it feels like
physical.
Ayla. Like it's interesting. Like I think like Yatreda does it so well. Like Yatreda used to be like always in her pieces. Now it's like she doesn't have to be in her pieces.
Yeah.
And you're still like, well, that feels like a Yatreda.
Yeah.
So she embodies, all her work is embodied by her, And I think there's something about that I do think you're getting in that direction very much. And I think a lot of times in our community, and we've become pretty close like over the last 2 years, but that I appreciate about your approach here is that so many artists in our community feel like they have to be ready now. Right? Without experimenting, it's almost like they're embarrassed to say, I'm not quite there yet with who I am as an artist. Instead of like, the way I see it, and we've had this conversation, I love the fact that you could see their whole trajectory.
Totally.
You see like, people look at Joe Pease now, his pieces are brilliant. I mean, I'm very open about how much I love his pieces. But if you go back to his super rare pieces,
his early stuff,
they don't even look anything like
the illustrations, that are animated,
right? Like they're just like, it was like you could clearly see him start to. That doesn't make anything less valuable or special. It's just that process. So for you, I do appreciate your conversation.
Yeah.
Of always trying to see like, how am I progressing to embody what Ayla or my art is?
Yeah.
And I think that's really important for artists to understand.
It's true, because there's also two things. Well, we've been in this quote unquote industry, we should say, for 5 years?
Yeah, more or less.
And that was something I remember in 21 and 22. Even it was just this like deep unconscious feeling when people were selling for like double digits. Like you could mint anything and sell it for basically whatever you put your price at.
It was an insane time.
It was an insane time. And I remember after I'd had a few sales, like 6, 7 ETH, there was like 2 collectors who said double digits, go double digits. But I didn't because one, I'm like, this is a long game.
Yeah.
Like truly, I found this space. I'd been really looking for this space since 2018, like no lie. And there was just something about long game. Like,
Well, it's believing in you yourself to have that ability to say like I could stand the test of time by being here. You know, like I just think we need to give artists more latitude to try to like create
yeah.
and not worry about making mistakes. And I know I post this every once in a while about that video, like this guy, you know, from like the 60s talking.
Yeah,
about
it was
this,
a beautiful,
right?
I love
Yeah.
that video.
And you know, he's a famous like sort of art advisor critic, I guess. And he's right. Like artists need to make mistakes. And mistakes aren't mistakes. They're just kind of building blocks.
But 21 and 22 was hard because I think a lot of people were terrified, one, to like change
Yeah.
sort of what they were known
if it's
for.
working.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like,
Exactly.
if this is the mimetic kind of work, like if this is what's going to create mimetic desire and people are going to really fall for this piece and, you know, they know me right away instantly. This is a Grant Yun or this is, you know, Joe Pease or Sam Spratt. Why change that?
And I think it's okay. Look, there's some artists in our space, photographers who haven't changed and who are still having success in what they do. And you know, I don't personally, you know, purchase from them because I'm just like, I think that this is the same material I've seen over and over again.
Yeah.
And you know, especially when it comes, by the way, to like nude photography and nude abstracts and all these types of things, like there needs to feel like sort of a momentum of change. Right?
Totally.
And if it isn't, it's like, look, you want to collect, like totally. I'm always like, I'm glad people are collecting, but I'm personally
Just
like,
right click save.
yeah, like I'm just not as interested. I'm like, well, I could see this on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
Well,
not like
totally.
something I'm
It's
like.
also, you know, it's only been 5 years.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When you look at other arcs of artists throughout their life, it's like
Yeah.
almost everyone goes through certain phases,
Totally.
but they probably last for more than 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And like
sometimes
5 years is not a lot. You have a body of work and it can take maybe 5 years just to like make that.
Yeah.
I don't know. We live in this hyper speed.
like we expect you to evolve like every 3 months, every 6 months.
Like
It's
we need, like we're so carnivorous. Like we
have
need
to.
something
we
new.
need it right now.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's
so I do try to like look at it through that lens of like yes, maybe they've been doing the same or similar things, but like on the scheme of the space, it's been like 5 years, and it's like that's still.
it's such a
So-
short period of time.
But we
and-
expect because we're so, I think accustomed on the collector side. Most of the collectors have made their money through speculating on cycles,
Yeah.
and the accelerated cycles that we deal with from a monetary standpoint with Bitcoin and the other tokens,
Yeah.
we push that same expectation. I feel like on the artist.
yes.
Yeah.
And then they take that role on to be like that. And they feel that they have, like they're forced to do
And I try to
things.
tell them like it's okay. Like don't. I want you to push yourself as an artist, but I don't want you to feel like you need to be a phoenix and
Yes.
fucking burn out and rebirth
Yes.
multiple times a year or even once every
Yeah.
couple of years, because a lot of us, you know, you're lucky to be young and to be like a lot of people before this shit, like they would have to create their whole lives.
You know-
And then they become coveted at the end of their life or after they die. And
Literally.
And
yeah.
we've seen that in our space. So like I was with a very large collector like 2 nights ago, and he's one of the biggest collectors of Vera Milner.
Yeah.
He talk about like a story, right? Exactly like this, right? She died, I believe, at 99 years old. Only like 6 months ago, I believe. Right?
Very recently.
And she had this full career. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until recently that people took notice. Now, this collector has been collecting her for years.
Yeah.
Didn't care
I love that.
about anything. He's like, he told me, he's like, no institution, no museum called me for years. Then all of a sudden, everybody wanted his collection, you know? And to him, he's like, and it really hit me. He's like, he's like, it didn't matter to me. 'Cause
Yeah.
I already knew,
Yeah.
right? Because I saw that journey of that artist, you know, and she did an NFT drop, which was huge.
Yeah, Martin Grasser.
Right. And, you know, she passed away, and, you know, it was at the end of her life where she was still creating. And it's interesting because you could go back, and I was looking to buy some pieces from her, and like now all of a sudden it's like, do you want her career in the 60s? Do you want her career in the 80s? Do you want her career in the 90s? Do you want her career in 2015? Right? Like,
Yeah, do you
all of
want
a sudden
that
she has this full
body of
and we're sitting here and we have condensed that into years. Sorry, not multiple years,
Months.
into months.
totally.
Right?
Do you want an early 2021
Yeah.
piece from Joe P?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh,
Like
wow.
it, like even like I was talking to Sam, and Sam just finished this gigantic project.
Yeah.
And somebody was like, somebody was DMing me like, okay, is he having a bigger project next year? I was like, dude, he just finished.
So he's not
a
even
year and a half.
finished. Like, it's not like
It's not even done yet. Like, we're so like
Just spent basically 2 years.
yeah.
making this
Missing
like
this, and now all of a sudden you're like, hey, what's next year? I'm like, wait, it might be 4 years. I have no clue. And I think it's like this like obsession we have because like we need instant gratification so much, especially in our community with
Yeah.
art, that we're just expecting artists to like pop art out and it's going to be amazing, and they don't have the time to even build on it.
what's this weird thing I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not so much a collector. I mean, I used to collect some friends' pieces, but it
Yeah.
wasn't because I'm like, oh, this is going to bring me $1 million in whatever many years. It was more just that euphoric support that was happening in 21, 22.
100%.
But it's interesting because you said something that you said career, her whole artistic career. And I've been thinking about this idea of a career and like, what does that mean to be a career artist? And you do have to think about the business aspect. Like, I would be lying if I said I don't think about that.
Yeah,
because
100%.
you have to kind of, again, look at the greats, look at everyone who's come before you, pace yourself. But if you want to be a surviving artist, like you said, we're so lucky to make $1 of anything on my artwork alive is wild to me. It's still like, it will never ever get old. But it's that thing where you, like you're saying, I was speaking to a fund like 2 weeks ago, and I was just, having a conversation, and they were saying they no longer really buy from emerging artists because it doesn't, like, all the artists that they bought tanked, and they're coming at it from a business. Like, we have cycles to make. And so it's this really interesting dynamic of like the art itself, the business aspect, again, like, let me just collect it because I see the vision. I know where it's going to go.
And I think that's why you need like, when, like, for instance, when Dee's, myself, and like Guy bought your piece, right? It's more of like, we're never selling that. Like, like for us, that was like three of us like, hey, we've always loved your work. We want to be patrons and support you. And you and I have had this conversation. Like, I really like to support artists now where I'm like, look, I would love to buy something, but I love to get an art piece, but like, what else are you doing with that?
It's not ready yet.
Correct.
Or like,
right. Like, are you trying to, like, if I'm paying X amount of money, is that also going towards an exhibit?
Yeah.
Are you taking that money to build something else with it?
Yeah.
Right. I just sponsored Sarah Mahias. I'm not there in the Desert X, and I'm not even going to be there present, but she's building this incredible thing. And she's like, hey, this is what I'm selling. I was like, you know what? I love that idea. Like, now I'll get a piece of art, and I'm not going to be in Joshua Tree, unfortunately, to see it.
oh man.
But it's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
But that's her building her experiences and her way of, not just her, but other artists, of trying to like expand their boundaries and not just make it about the flip.
It's hard. It's hard in this space too.
It's definitely changed too since like 2021 into 2022. Just a lot of people were like drunk.
Yeah.
And there was so much money flowing. Like, capital was.
We were in an environment where it was basically 0% interest rates, and everyone was like max out on the risk curve. We had just had an insane cycle of gains from, minting squiggles for $20 and selling them for $30,000, buying punks for $1,000 and selling them for $250,000, like stuff that might not ever happen again.
Yeah.
And a lot of that money for some of us just like flowed into art. And then we set these unrealistic expectations. A lot of people who weren't around for previous cycles came in, and they were like, oh, this is going to last forever. we had a very unsustainable. I mean, it happened to
Trajectory.
Weish. It happened to a lot of artists we know where they make a bunch of money, they just buy all their friends' stuff. Nobody is thinking like, I need to have a cushion to create for a year,
Yeah.
6 months, 5 years. I need to cover taxes. It was much
Totally.
like, hey, I made a sell for 10 ETH. I want to buy 80 ETH worth of my friend's art.
Yeah.
And it was great in the short term.
Yeah.
But it created a very, number one, poor expectation loop that is unsustainable. Number two, it hurt the stability of a lot of people who made a lot of money and thought like
This
that was
is
going
it.
to last
This
forever.
totally.
And now we're transitioned to a part where you have like two types of collectors. You have we'll call them collectors and patrons. Collectors are more like the funds you're talking to.
Yeah.
They're looking to invest in cycles and they're looking to like just buy the top 10 artists, or like they're looking at the power laws.
Yeah,
and
it's
they're
the
already
asset,
looking
yeah.
at what has shown to be at the top, and they're assuming that that trend will continue.
Yeah.
And for some people, it might, like X Copy, people, Sam.
Yeah, Sam, for
I'm sure we've all bet on them in various ways.
Yeah.
But the other part is, eventually, just like stocks and just like any other thing, the power laws will change.
Yeah.
And people who aren't in that top 10 now will be there later.
Totally.
And you make connections with all these different artists. And for us, it's like, start to realize you just want to bet on the people you like,
Yeah.
who you would want to be in an Uber with for an hour and talk about
Exactly.
life.
Yeah.
What
love
you'd like
that.
to have on a podcast.
I love
to talk
that.
to.
Yeah.
And you don't care if they don't make it into the top 10 later
Right.
on. You helped try. And number two, you like the art. And it's like, a lot of the stuff I bought is worth less than I bought, but I don't
Yeah.
care because I look at it and smile. It's not like I bought a shit coin and the shit coin went to zero and like
Exactly.
I look at it and hate myself for doing it. It's like, this art could go to zero. I mean,
I would take a risk on an art. I'd rather take a risk on an artist than a shitcoin. Even though I take a risk on a shitcoin to make more money to be
able
take
to
more
buy the
risks.
art, yeah.
but
on
the
artists.
shitcoin time horizon is so small. The shitcoin time horizon is literally by the time you're
Minutes.
done taking a shit.
Yeah.
Like the art time horizon is like a lifetime.
Right.
And
Like,
you're building. So it's like, again, we get to have these conversations. I get to talk to my collectors and ask their opinion and learn about their children and what they like to eat for dinner, and these sort of moments that we forget. And then also to your point of like the top 10, that can be a great aspiration if that's what you want. But also, like, again, when you're in the top 10, you will very soon cycle out of that top 10 and,
there's a lot of pressure being in the top 10.
there's a lot of and being in that sort of middle zone is just as great.
Well, I think there's like different tiers of artists, and like I've said this before, like if let's say there's 4 tiers of artists, and the top tier is like
The blue
10,
chips,
12 blue
your
chips.
top.
But you're in like, if you're in tier 4s, to me are artists that are kind of transient, so they're here and then they're gone, sort of
Okay.
thing.
Like people who like did a couple big drops.
They
in
did a couple big
2021,
drops. They're here, they're gone,
and we haven't seen them in like
Right.
2 years.
And then you have
Yeah.
like tier 2s and 3s, and you have just some incredible artists there that are really phenomenal that like will become career artists. Brian Brinkman is a career artist,
Yeah.
right? And he'll admit to you, he's like, I'm not a top tier 1 artist, but he's like, I'm okay with being a top tier 2 or 3 artist. Like, that's my career. Like, I think some people have aspirations to do bigger and better things, but like, I would say Jesse Wilston is like a great example of like, he's a brilliant artist. He's like, I don't need to be the best artist. I want to inspire to do more things,
Yeah.
right? And he has these crazy ideas. Or like, Yatreda or yourself. And there's something about like how we could create this microeconomy in our micro universe that we've created.
Yeah.
Where like artists that become career artists at least don't have to worry about that statement of, you went home to your parents and said, I want to be an artist. And they said, well, have fun being poor.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I hate that narrative. Hate is a strong word, but I don't
used
like
to
that.
exist, and I kind of feel like that narrative doesn't have to exist anymore. But we need to do a better job at like at like really creating like a community that supports that. And in order to do that, we need to take some risks, but we also need artists also need to be understanding of like, hey, if I make $10,000 on a piece, I'm going to use most of that to build my studio.
Totally.
I don't need,
I'm gonna
right?
use like most of that to put it in my bank account.
my
and
bank account. Correct.
sleep
and
at
just
night, like-
Yeah.
and like eat and be able to
Like,
sustain myself,
give myself
for
stability.
Put heat in my
exactly.
room. Yeah.
Totally.
Talking about stability and heat and, you know, you're also an author.
Yes. We had to get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like very gently and self-author and not, it's like,
No, acclaimed. Now, the thing about your book, which we have found fascinating.
should we, let me gently just loll up and tell the listeners or whoever's watching this very quickly how this book came
Sure.
about. So it was during COVID and we were all locked down. And I do love depth psychology and subconscious and sort of these repressed things that we as humans keep. Anyway, so this started as a question every Sunday. I would do 20 questions. I'd do 19 like kind of
With yourself or?
just on Instagram,
Okay.
like as a story post. I do 19 sort of multiple choice, like yes or no questions, and then I do one like answer question. And it started off like just very casually, and then it grew into this big. The people were writing me and telling me all these like wild stories or things that they'd repressed. The book is called The Little Book of Sex Questions. So I was really trying to dive into this idea that
Can you hand me the book? Just hand me the book. Don't be so scared. I'll get Reach to give me his copy. It's fine. All right. So let's go through this. So this is, I mean, it literally is a little book.
It is a little book.
This is your artwork. This is
Yeah.
your,
Artwork.
you can zoom in on this. Okay. And so you started off by doing this on Instagram and people ask these questions. Now, people will read the title and I
Yeah.
think be like, well, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But Deez and I have used this book in other places. I have read it with friends. I've given it to people.
Yes.
And once you get into the depth of it, while it gets a little,
Well, it gets
Heated.
so the thing is, it gets
there's a lot of
there's
self-reflection.
there's a lot of reasons. So the first question in the book is very important because it sets the tone of the entire sort of way.
Can I read it?
Is it the first question? Let me see.
Do you masturbate?
No, is that the
Oh,
first
sorry.
question? It is the first
That
question.
is the first question.
What's the other one? Oh, I completely.
Have you ever faked pleasure?
What's the next question?
Don't know your own book.
I
By the way, all these pictures are your art, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
except for there's a couple. My brother has some. My sister.
Let's give a
has
shout
some.
out to your brother.
Yeah.
Because he's an incredible artist. So you
I love
should-
your banter on the timeline
Yeah.
with each
He's
other.
such a little shit, but I love him dearly.
Yeah.
Like he's.
Can you tell everybody his Twitter, like, you know, and give him a little shout out? Because
Of
I know
course.
you want to take all the sales, but maybe just give him a little.
No way, no.
Yeah.
So I have to shout him out one because he probably minted a work before I ever did, and didn't tell me about it when I was looking for like, how do I do this? Didn't tell me.
He just
Yeah.
let you figure it out.
He let me figure it out. Jakob, I think it's Jakob XYZ is his
Jakob
handle
XYZ.
at Jakob XYZ.
Not El El-Moussa.
No, he removed that after he was like Jakob Editions Live.
Got it.
That was like,
Okay.
remember
But
when-
great work.
He's great. I love him to death. And he really is someone who understood what I was trying to do, like from the beginning.
I love that.
Like
He's your younger brother.
He's my younger brother, but he's
So you
kind
beat him up when he was a kid?
no, it
You
was
threw chickens
It
out.
was. Can you imagine? We actually were not close until after I came back from university.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, it was like
Interesting.
more. He was so much younger than me, but now we're probably really close, just in terms of like, if I had to like, my sister and I are close. Our whole family is close, but him and I are like really similar. We'll get food poisoning from the same thing. Like we have the same stomach, and like. What's really wild is we're almost like twins in a way. Where like I'll be like, oh, I'm craving a burger.
How much you're 10 years older?
You're asking me to do math, and
Okay,
I cannot. But he'll like I'll be like, oh, I'm craving a burger, or like, oh, I really want ramen, and then he'll like text me a photo, and he's eating a burger. Or
What's your most likely to get food poisoning food?
ooh, probably like street tacos.
Yeah. Mine is McDonald's chicken nuggets.
Oh my god, I don't think I've had McDonald's in like.
I just throw up. I'm like an expert at throwing up at this point in my life.
What?
Yeah, I just.
Okay,
part about the water and the womb, and he can recreate it.
we
in his mouth.
we need to have a conversation.
That's not one of these questions. Do you throw up? It's actually more like, have you ever fantasized about the opposite sex?
Of course, haven't you?
I mean, you're not supposed to ask me these questions.
Well, here's the thing: is that
Yeah,
number one is like I really want this to go to air and be like one of the beautiful episodes because I feel like it's an initiation to be on We Do a Little.
Well, I want
you.
to be clear. We've had so
please let's not vault this episode for my ego.
Let's be very honest about. So we've read this book twice before.
Yeah.
Both episodes will be aired at some point. One was with Julie Pacino and her amazing girlfriend, her partner, we had the best time with. We need to maybe.
I think we asked them every question 3 times.
Yes.
Wow.
And they actually answered it.
So
they answered. We probably should air that episode. I think it's okay. I just think we need to watch it again to see. And we also did one with. We read this with Snowfro. And he will not allow us to.
He was very uncomfortable.
So he
was uncomfortable, but answer the questions,
which is great.
Yeah.
And I think it's a community builder, and it really makes us all closer together because we're kind of hashing out these really intimate. Like very intimate
I think
questions.
when I threw the "Do you masturbate?" question to Snowfro, it was like, well, all right, this is
Time
is
out.
all
Tapped out. Done.
1 second, like But I think the point is though, right about the book, is that you're not trying. You're trying to obviously get a rise, but you're also doing it to like be a little self sort of conscious but like really look inside yourself and say like when I answer these questions, it's not just like, do you masturbate? Everybody masturbates.
It all goes back to
well, that's not true.
Okay.
That is not like the data that I've collected from people who have answered these questions. I mean, I still have it because
you have your Instagram.
Yeah, like Instagram has.
It's a polling.
Yeah, it's a polling and it's on stories, so I can go back and I can look at the percent of people who answered and what the answer was. And actually, that's not true. And a lot of people.
Have you ever thought to make a follow-up? Maybe not necessarily a book.
I've asked her so much
but
times.
a book with the data
Yes.
of the people who answered.
Who answered? I was thinking.
Because it's all anonymous. Like, not the personal stories.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like the 19 out of 20 that were like, yes, no, maybe,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever.
I think that would be a really interesting. I should probably republish it with that data in the back,
That would be interesting.
which I think would be great.
On chain.
On chain. Do you think this? I don't
No,
think the space is ready for that.
because like we always say on chain.
Totally.
Yeah.
But there's a follow up, a little book of life questions as well.
Well, there is.
But I haven't made it yet.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say.
Have you been doing the same thing with Instagram with that one where you're asking these questions and getting
A response.
Yes.
Yes. Basically after 2020 and 21, I stopped doing it.
Yeah.
But I have all of that data and I have all those questions.
And then the life one's more recent. Or no, that's
No,
still
they were
from
all
that
they
era.
were all
Okay.
they were all sort of like lumped into one, and then I went through and sorted
okay, I
it.
got you.
And then I figured sex questions would probably, sex sell, so maybe this would kind of.
Well, it's also just like very subconscious stuff that you can have a very intimate conversation with your partner reading these to each other.
Yeah.
Or you can have a very intimate conversation with Benny.
Or your friends or yourself, and just like.
Benny reads it every night before bed and asks himself.
I read a lot of these questions, but my question to you is, do you answer the questions ever?
To myself, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't do it now because
No, I'm not asking you to do
we're on a podcast, but of course I've had to. I mean,
So this is not just questions you're making other people ask. You're being self-reflective.
yeah. And so what would happen?
And is it connected to the pictures that are in here?
So basically, what I did, because I love books, I have like 1.5 tons and counting weight of books because I collect, but they're big books, like huge
Oh my
photography
God,
books.
You and my wife.
1.5 tons. You have like the scale.
This is.
So when I move,
She's a hoarder. She's a hoarder like
when
my
I
wife.
move,
You need to like hang out with my wife.
it's
where this
not.
is
It's
all
not
she does.
hoarding. It's just
Collecting.
I'm building my
hoarding.
archive and my
Hoard-
library.
hoarding.
It's a library.
It's
hoarding.
a library.
library.
Dude, I move every time I move. There's like 7 bajillion books. I'm like, where are these books even
It's
coming
called the
from?
Library of Alexandria.
Exactly.
Cleopatra Gene.
So, but
It's
this is
royalty.
like, I love publishing and I love book. That's why there's like that beautiful texture and thicker paper. But the images were kind of just all these archive images that I had. And then my sister obviously has a few in there. My brother.
I mean, some of these are really, I think, like interesting. Like, you'll ask, I think, some serious questions.
Yeah.
And I think all of them are serious, but like, like strip clubs,
Yes or no?
turn on or turn off?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a great question.
These are great questions. And I think
I
messed up.
Strip clubs, turn on or turn off? No?
I think it's a no for
A lot of people.
yeah. It's no for me.
It's a yes for me, 100%.
Really?
Yeah.
More.
But that's different. I go there and I fall in love with the strippers. They tell me a story.
Aw,
It's like
Benny.
very, and then I have to leave, and then I
Benny
have to break
asks
up
if,
with them.
if there's a womb.
Yeah, and then I gotta
Is
go
there a
home,
womb
and then
to
my
go-
wife, how was it? I was like, it's fine,
She was great. This is her life
Yeah,
story,
this is her
you
life
know.
story. She went to college.
She's an
and
aspiring artist. I
she's an
collected
aspiring
3
artist,
pieces.
Yeah.
Shamir's, I'm gonna fucking kill you, bitch.
No, I come home, she doesn't care, but
Your wife is such an icon. Like
She's the
too
best.
Cool.
I don't know how she deals with him,
Yeah.
but
okay. So I've been going into a deep dive about sex robots.
I
just right in.
have a very fascinating question I'm going to ask. But
Okay,
continue.
so you know what? Go ahead.
Tell us your spiel first.
No, there's no spiel. I'm just fascinated. Here's my thing. I'm curious. I believe sex robots will happen.
They've
right?
already happened.
Yeah. So what's going to happen is there's like a couple questions you could ask. One is like, does the autonomous agent that you're going to create that I'm having or anybody's having sex with have any rights where we're, utilizing it and it's being like, hey, is it just a sex toy or is it actually like,
Does it have feelings?
Yeah,
Should
feelings,
we have?
should get a permission? But really my biggest question is what happens to relationships, right?
Yeah,
in this world, in society, when you literally could have something that you could have sex with all the time.
Yeah.
And when you take out, so I believe love and intimacy are connected, but sometimes I think they could be totally two separate things, right?
Yeah.
It depends on sometimes, but I do also believe that the best love has intimacy, right? But there's sometimes just intimacy or sex where it's just totally clear. So with sex robots, my fascination really is that will society get to a point where we will have no relationships, better relationships? I'm really kind of curious to see where this all goes. But now you can ask your question. So that's really where I'm at.
That was kind of my question. Is like
There you
when
go.
you have these sort of machines that, let's say you have some crazy fantasy that you want to
Right.
do, whatever it is, and it's not ethical. You couldn't really do that to another human per se, but you want to act that out on the machine. Is that good or bad? And then what happens if the machine starts collecting that data and then tracking you and then giving it to whatever conglomerate that has control of the machine, and it learns, okay, so this is what this person likes and this is exactly what their fetish is or what their like deep desire is. Like, I think that could get really
I mean, it could get like little dystopian, but I think we're starting to
Pretty.
see it. Like for
the
instance,
machine's
like
gonna end up killing people.
maybe or
it's once
like,
it learns to be this motherfucker's fucked. Like,
I actually think we're seeing it right now in the art world. So I think Botto and sex robots are very similar. Okay.
DAOs are gonna control the sex robots.
Well, hear me out. Botto doesn't have all the control that it needs yet. Now I'm saying like they're building, but they have the DAO which votes and makes decisions when Botto actually doesn't have any votes or decisions to make itself. So essentially, it's like a sex robot where you're like, I can have sex and do what I want with you. And you don't get to have the choice to decide what, it really wants. Like, hey, I don't want to do that. Or I want to paint this today. Or I think this is the painting that out of the 10 I've painted that should be up there for sale. And like, I would like to see the autonomous agents we have more decision-making process, because I think it would help when sex robots are with humans, that humans will at least not treat them like, a machine. But I don't know if that's going to happen.
I don't think human nature. Some people will have that.
Like I say please and thank you to ChatGPT all the time.
Well, that's just a show of your character.
No, I'm afraid that one day when they take over, they're going to remember me and say, hey, that guy said please and thank you. We're not going to kill him.
that
They're
guy
really
was
thinking
nice.
That guy was nice.
long-term.
That guy wasn't.
He's
trying to have
okay,
sex
but
with
He
us.
wasn't trying to have sex with you. If he did, he said, hey, I'm sorry or thank you.
Could we go to a strip
You
club?
go to strip club. Right.
That
That's I mean, interesting thought, but
I
best believe that machine and data is collecting all the things that you
Yeah.
Google and text and chat and quite not just chat GPT, please and thank you, but whatever preferences you enjoy, that's all.
That's why having a gun is so great, because there's no autonomous agents in the gun or data. It's just
Not yet.
Not yet. But it's just your
Will
weapon
you
that you
shoot
have.
the robot?
I don't know. Well, now that you've convinced me that I should probably get a gun in my house.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm big on
especially-
guns.
Yeah, I think especially if you, well, that's a question that I always ask. I think I asked it in one of my polls is like, what's more dangerous, the thought or the gun?
Thought.
Exactly.
I
Because
think thought.
that's what pulls the trigger.
Right.
Guns don't kill people. People kill people.
Exactly. But the thing
I don't want
is,
to get politically here, but I really believe that. Fully.
Yeah,
No.
I believe
I believe it too.
Like,
'cause
I've said this a lot. Like, look, I understand.
people have been killing people long before guns
long
ever
before
existed.
guns.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, I'm all for, like, I understand where people are like, we should have some kind of gun control, and I get that. But the thing that we're missing out is, like, we talk nothing in this country about mental health. Zero. Mental health
oh,
is
we
like,
do now. It's
it's-
become a
it's-
bit, it's
still taboo.
No, I don't think so.
I think in this country, specifically, especially with men, it's a very taboo thing. I think it's not. I don't think we have conversations enough about depression, and weight on your shoulders.
I think
and
we
things
do
like
mean-
within the context of our environments right now
Yes.
that we're in.
yes,
Yeah.
in
But
But
our
I
little
don't
thing.
think on a
The
broader
wider-
Yes,
scale.
on a broader scale.
Especially with, I think older men, men over the age of like 30, 35.
Yeah, where it was kind of that thing where, you have to just be a man and suck it up and
Right. And they still say that. You're a man and you're married and you have kids and you got to suck it up.
Just fucking it.
Or you could just read the little sex book and
then learn about yourself.
learn about yourself.
But the thing is this is hard to like put into a place so it doesn't get political, but I do believe in this sort of, there is a balance, like women do give birth to life. Men do hunt. And like, if you look at every other species, except for maybe seahorses who carry the baby, it's usually,
I agree with that, but I will say this. If I
the thing
was
is if you
living-
can't speak to somebody about it and be like, hey, I really had a bad day. This is
Yeah.
really hard. Like, I'm feeling like shit. Because society is like, well,
agreed. But I do think, like, if I lived back in the day in a cave with Amira, she's definitely hunting. It's not even a question. I go out. I come back with like a little rodent. She'd look at me. She's like, "The fuck is this?" She'd go out. She'd come back with like a Tyrannosaurus
Then
Rex.
he would be collecting berries.
Yeah.
well, see, but,
Yeah.
but here's the thing. That is totally
His
fine.
name would be Red Berries.
Red berries. I'd be like, the little berries. And she'd be like, "This. We have 3 children. You brought back berries."
Listen, it's antioxidant. It helps with the meat.
Everyone's eating.
Yeah.
That's
All
so
right.
funny.
So, we've had a great time.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. I hope we didn't make you feel too uncomfortable.
No,
And
gently, but it's
gently.
okay.
Why don't you tell us, what do you have coming up? I know that you've been building new things. You talked about how you're expressing yourself a lot differently as an artist.
Yeah.
You showed me some of the amazing physical ideas that you've had.
Yes.
So can you give us a little like hint of where
We're
next?
going. Well, the way I actually started to get into NFTs was because I wanted to build these beautiful, big physical sculptures in a sense. And so my whole, I would say, trajectory for 2025 is to continue leading into this micro view of the artwork and the body and the form and really abstract it until I can basically leave you with what I will say is like a Horcrux or an essence of my soul. So eventually, what I would love to happen is that you see a symbol, which is a inverted triangle, and you see water, and you think of Ayla and the artwork.
I think you're like basically there.
Slowly, it's coming. I think
Yeah.
I've been like really
What's
getting.
the importance of the inverted triangle?
So the inverted triangle in alchemy is the symbol for water. So alchemy is, I don't know if you know about alchemy, but there was these incredible early chemists, I would say, or alchemists that would try and take base metal and turn it into gold. Yeah. And it kind of is this illusion of, going into the divine and to the enlightenment of the soul and the mind through metal transformation. So that obviously it means water, which is what I'm all about. And then obviously it is the female womb. So if you look at my last 2 pieces, it's sort of zoomed in on that area of wombness. So source code, which is the one bats
Yeah.
took, and then salt and skin is also very.
No, I'm excited. I think that the more we've talked, it's
Yeah.
like I felt over a little bit of time that I feel like you've had a little resurgence in your creativity, and like you're kind of getting excited about what could happen next.
Oh, because it's been sort of there. It's kind of these sculptures. I've really I have receipts. I have all the data. I've wanted to do these for probably before NFTs were a thing.
You're
so.
finally to the point where
But I'm finally at the point where it's like actually coming, and it's like,
And you feel ready.
and I think the space is ready. Like it will make sense in the storyline of, oh, this is totally just the next iteration of her work.
I love that.
it's exciting. Wrap
Yeah.
up with the last question for
Yeah.
you.
So, Ayla, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
You know, Deez and I have been fans of yours for a very long time.
Yeah.
We've always wanted to do this podcast. Your presence has
It's nice that you're close to New York now.
Yeah,
I
'cause
know. I'm
When
so
you're in
happy.
California and we
It's like-
record in New York.
We
it's
we always missed you. So, and your presence was actually always in our podcast when we read your book.
Of course, I
So,
appreciate it.
but I do think that, I advise everybody to take really look, at your work, hit you up, speak to you, because I think there's a lot of depth and interesting things about you. But I think people sometimes perception of you and what your reality is two very different things as
Yeah.
an artist and as a person.
Totally.
And I am glad that I got to know you so that I could see that. And I know these, it feels very much the same way. And that's why we love your art and who you are. So thank you for coming.
Thank
Everybody
you.
should look out. And with that, I'm going to let Deez kind of close and ask the last question we ask everybody.
Perfect.
Yeah, so it's a way more lighthearted question.
Great.
Not sexual. About
If you were on a deserted island, what album would you pick to listen to either make you at peace at being trapped on a desert island or help you get off?
Sade, for sure. Sade's, I don't know if it's called The Rock, but I love that album.
That might have been the quickest answer we've got.
Oh, for sure. Because she's like, I listen to her all the time.
That's literally the quickest answer we've had.
100%. I don't think there'd be
Why?
anybody else.
What about it that?
Everything, the soul, the timelessness, that if I'm trapped on a desert island and I'm panicking, it will just be like this beautiful lullaby music.
Can I ask? And we usually only ask one question, but now that we know this, what movie would you pick?
Trilogy, Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Duh.
Okay.
Because you would get off the island before the trilogy's over. It's so fucking long.
Exactly.
No, but I could learn some things along the
Wait,
way.
do you speak Elvish?
No.
I speak a little Klingon.
Really?
Yeah, just a little.
Little trivia.
That's how we wrap it up. Little Klingon.
And with that, we'll wrap up. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you
guys.
so much. Thank you so much.